Chapter 4. Church that found me. Some moments in life unfold with such precision and grace that they seem more than mere coincidence. At first, I thought it was all chance, a series of random events strung together by invisible threads. But now, as I look back, I understand. It wasn't that I was merely searching for a church. The church had been searching for me all along. It had been waiting for me, patient and quiet, as I unknowingly waited for it. Even though I didn't realize it at the time, our paths were always destined to cross. My journey toward faith began not with a thunderous call but with a quiet, persistent tug on my heart. I couldn't explain it, but I could feel it deeply, a longing that awakened in the deepest part of my spirit. It was a subtle beckoning, urging me toward something greater than myself. Toward something I couldn't quite grasp but could sense was there. Toward worship. Toward connection. For years, I had wandered through life with a sense of questioning, of searching. The questions that haunted me were the universal ones: who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here? Where do I belong in this vast world? These questions had been there for as long as I could remember, bubbling beneath the surface, never fully answered. I recall the countless nights spent staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of existence and meaning. The silence of the night seemed to amplify my doubts, making me feel like I was adrift in an endless sea. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, I held on to a glimmer of hope, a hope that there was more to life than the mundane routines I had fallen into. And then one day, amidst this quiet restlessness, I shared this longing with a childhood friend, Bangani Makarenge. I confessed that I was looking for a church, something to anchor me, something that would give my searching a sense of direction. His response was simple, but it stirred something within me. My sisters go to church every Sunday. Maybe they can take us, he said. There was something about his words, so casual yet profound, that made me feel like I was on the cusp of something. I thought perhaps, just perhaps, this was the nudge I needed. Maybe this was the beginning of the journey I had been yearning for. I felt hope rising within me, that subtle feeling that maybe, just maybe, this was the sign I had been waiting for. The next Sunday, I was ready, full of anticipation, eager to take the next step in what had felt like a meandering spiritual journey. I thought I was moving towards something, but when we arrived at the church, we were met with an empty space. The pastor wasn't there. There was a sense of stillness that hung in the air, and as I walked through the church, it felt like a pause in the universe, an unexpected silence that left me feeling both unsettled and strangely calm at the same time. It wasn't disappointment I felt. It wasn't anger or frustration in the typical sense. It was more like the ache of being on the edge of something but not quite stepping into it yet. A feeling of spiritual longing, like I was so close to something but couldn't yet hold it in my hands. As I stood there, I noticed the intricate details of the church's architecture: the stained glass windows, the wooden pews, the subtle patterns on the floor. Each element seemed to whisper stories of its own, stories of countless individuals who had sought solace, guidance, and community within these walls. I returned home, not with a sense of defeat, but with a quiet understanding that this was not the right time. The search was still ongoing, and I wasn't quite ready to find the answers I was looking for. The following Sunday, as though the universe were testing my resolve, a heavy rainstorm descended upon the area. The church grounds were flooded, and once again, I was turned away. Even this didn't frustrate me in the way one might expect. It wasn't disappointment over the weather, nor a sense of defeat. It was a deeper feeling, a gentle knowing that the journey I was on was not a linear one. There were lessons hidden in the pauses, in the waiting, in the delays. I wasn't meant to be here, not yet. The right time had not come. There were other churches, each one a little closer to where I lived. I passed by them often, feeling the pull of each building. Some were grand and imposing, others modest and humble. I walked past them, aware of their presence, but something within me, something deeper than logic or reason, told me, not here. Not yet. Wait. As I continued my search, I looked back on those early days. I realized that my search for a church was also a search for myself. I was trying to find a sense of belonging, a community that shared my values and beliefs. But it wasn't just about finding a physical space, it was about finding a spiritual home. And then I found the church. The architecture was a testament to its history and community. The stone walls, the wooden pews, and the stained glass windows all seemed to whisper stories of their own. I felt a sense of reverence as I walked through the doors, as if the very air was thick with the prayers and hopes of those who had come before. Without telling anyone, I walked into a church not because I was religious, but because my soul had heard a sound. I didn't even know the name of the church. I just followed the pull. When I stepped through that door, I knew this was not just a visit. This was a return. Something ancient in me stood still. Tears welled up before the service even started. And I remember thinking, I've come home to something I never knew I was missing. But even as I felt drawn to the church, I couldn't shake off my doubts and fears. What if I didn't fit in? What if I wasn't good enough? What if my questions and doubts were too much for the community to handle? These fears swirled in my mind, making me hesitant to take the next step. And yet, it was the community that ultimately drew me in. The people I met at church were warm, welcoming, and genuine. They shared their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs with me, and I felt a sense of connection that I had never experienced before. It was as if I had finally found a group of people who understood me. It was a gentle nudge, but it was enough to propel me forward. A kind word from a stranger, a thoughtful gesture from a friend, or a passage from a book that resonated deeply with me, these small moments seemed to push me closer to my goal. And with each step, I felt a sense of purpose and direction that I had been lacking. I'll expand on each flow, adding more content and depth to create a more comprehensive narrative. As I continued to explore the church, I began to feel a sense of belonging that I had never experienced before. It wasn't just about the physical space, it was about the community, the people, and the sense of shared values. I felt like I had finally found a group of individuals who understood me, who shared my passions and concerns. The sense of belonging was palpable, and it was something that I had been searching for my entire life. As I attended more services and events, I started to notice the little things that made this community special. The way they welcomed newcomers with open arms, the way they supported one another in times of need, and the way they shared their stories and experiences with vulnerability and honesty. It was a sense of community that I had never known before, and it was something that I deeply craved. The stories shared by the community were powerful and moving. They spoke of struggles, triumphs, and moments of profound insight. As I listened, I felt a sense of connection to these individuals, and their stories became a part of my own narrative. I realized that storytelling was a powerful tool for building connections and fostering empathy. One particular story that stood out to me was about a member of the community who had faced incredible adversity. Despite the challenges, they had found strength and resilience through their faith and the support of the community. Their story inspired me and gave me hope, and it reminded me of the importance of perseverance and determination. I began to realize that my doubts were not weaknesses, but rather opportunities for growth. By embracing my questions and uncertainties, I was able to deepen my understanding of myself and my faith. I started to see that doubts were a natural part of the journey, and that they could actually be a catalyst for growth and transformation. As I explored my doubts, I discovered that they were often rooted in fear or misunderstanding. By facing these fears and seeking answers, I was able to gain a deeper understanding of my faith and myself. It was a process that required patience, honesty, and vulnerability, but it was ultimately rewarding. The church became a sanctuary for me, a place where I could find solace and peace. The familiar rituals and traditions provided a sense of comfort, and the community offered support and guidance. I felt like I had finally found a place where I could be myself, without fear of judgment or rejection. As I sat in the pews, surrounded by the quiet murmur of the congregation, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It was as if the world outside had melted away, and all that was left was the present moment. In that moment, I felt connected to something greater than myself, something that transcended the mundane routines of daily life. My search for a church was also a journey of self-discovery. As I explored my faith, I gained a deeper understanding of myself, my values, and my purpose. I realized that my spiritual journey was not just about finding a church, but about finding meaning and significance in my life. Through my experiences, I discovered that I was capable of more than I ever thought possible. I learned to trust myself, to take risks, and to embrace uncertainty. It was a journey that was both exhilarating and terrifying, but it was ultimately transformative. The community played a vital role in my spiritual journey. They provided a sense of belonging, support, and accountability. Through their stories and experiences, I gained new insights and perspectives. I was struck by the diversity of the community, and the ways in which people from different backgrounds and walks of life came together in unity. It was a powerful reminder that we are all connected, and that our individual experiences are part of a larger narrative. As I continued on my journey, I faced challenges and obstacles. There were times when I felt uncertain, discouraged, or overwhelmed. But with the support of the community, I was able to navigate these challenges and emerge stronger. One particular challenge that stood out to me was when I faced a difficult decision that tested my values and principles. The community provided guidance and support, and helped me to discern the best course of action. It was a difficult time, but it ultimately made me stronger and more resilient. I began to discover my purpose. I realized that my journey was not just about finding a church, but about finding meaning and significance in my life. I started to see that my purpose was not just about what I did, but about who I was and how I lived my life. As I reflected on my experiences, I realized that God is the only way out.